A time and place will exist. At that moment, a village will sit on the edge of a large metropolitan area, detached. The village will be green and relatively quiet, though cosmopolitan. Roads will wind, trees will sway, though not too far. People of different types will inhabit large wooden boxes, bunkers, tree forts, and estates. Some people will grow too tall, and some not short enough. Some will sport protruding ribs, others engulfed mounds of flesh. Some will speak foreign languages, and some not even their own, though none will be aware of what their native language may be. They will speak with their fingers crossed. They will waste their time in many ways, on parades, on charades, on games and paperwork. One among them will not waste his time, however. He will be a man among mousy creatures. He will be found at the top of a green hill, under a green tree that once held a green apple. His stomach will be that apple's new home. None will know this man of importance as a man of importance, but at some point, likely not until this man has turned to dust and dirt, we will have to tell certain tales about his thoughts, his life. Nothing can stop that. help had grown accustomed to this particular demand and eventually stopped taking it literally. Oddly, this was the only time that the doctor intended it to be taken that way. He could have harped on this issue, but moved on emotionally and physically. They sat quietly watching their game unfold atop a tall green hill covered with high grass and elephant trunk ivy. From the clearing they sat in, the doctor could see for a dozen miles in each direction, out to the bay, to the dense and wild forest, to the ravine. His mind quickly cut them up and regarded them as separate. The bay, it told him, would make a port for trade and houseboats. He could see the docks and longshoremen with their foul mouths and base desires. A tariff house could be constructed on the bluff where the gulls sat lazily. Serving no practical purpose, the ravine could be flattened for train tracks or an impressive monorail line in a vein similar to those seen in eastern metropolises. Commuting times would be shortened. It went on to discuss that such a wilderness could be processed into paper for forms, wood for lead pens, pressed into receptacle filler. Once cleared, he figured, the dromedary eaters would set up a grazing plain to fatten their thighs and chins. A pleasant plain in the distance troubled the doctor. It sat listless, his mind assumed. All of it was green, dormant and vacant. He was made to imagine a cul-de-sac with a fenced-in square plot of flowers and a circular island. Around this, several unassuming houses would stare at each other. Such scenes would take over the plain, he guessed. He could very well have noted all this in a chart or diagram. His eye twitched a bit, and Miss Marilla Huxley began to take a lead in the game at hand. The doctor turned around to a range of mountains. They were mainly silver with purple creases and white caps. Instantly the doctor noted these caps and related them to a need for water, be it for vehicle beautification, stately urban mechanical geysers, or the occasional glass of limeade. The pointed boulders, he figured, contained platinum, bronze, or at least a fuel source. He may have made arrangements for a crew to congregate there promptly with pickaxes. His stomach turned. The doctor moved his body in a manner that left him on his side, facing the woods. He apologized to them all, even Miss Marilla Huxley, who cared about nothing.
Of the creeping things of the earth and the very soil beneath them. He pictured them in states similar to the one he was experiencing. This sent what many referred to as shivers through his spine. But still, he thought how universal it was, how very right.
Here the doctor stood for hours. He eventually attempted a neck wound on the woman, though she didn't notice. The doctor assumed reptiles or birds were congregating elsewhere in the city. He needed to see that, so he left.
Later in the day, the doctor returned home and finished his tea and catalogue of Indian machinery.
Hello again, my dearest. I am unable to sleep tonight, as there are several questions running through my head. I should clarify, they are not questions, but statements. You may answer them, however. First is the issue of our surroundings, more specifically my surroundings, as what I am about to say is less significant to your surroundings. I have been considering the ways that our towns have become towns, how they have been carved out of jungles and forests, and how this might relate to our actions and desires. For instance, a hospital exists where trees were once born, perhaps by the design of some creator. Should the divinely created trees still stand, offering little practical use, aside from tire swings and maple syrup? Or are the processed stone hospitals more justified to take up that space? I suppose that is a question, but you won't answer that, I guess. The remaining trees seem so out of place when randomly placed to please the eye, or sliced perfectly for trails. I imagine they no longer look like trees. To change the topic, I must add that I have been visited by a strange little girl Occasionally I'll find her in my bedroom or under a cup and saucer. She even showed up on a recent trip abroad. But don't be jealous, these meetings are strictly business. Perhaps the two of you would get along personally as you both share the quality of no longer breathing or eating or sleeping. Well, you sleep. A bit too much at that. Start sleepwalking. Where have you been? Sincerely.
Noticing the outside areas and how they stood in such sharp contrast to himself, to his very species, he felt reluctantly that he was deserving of something terrible even. His situation, he figured. Why, he wondered, would one such as himself be allowed amongst the ivies and mosses? How would that fit logically? He was, after all, a man of medicine, a man of scientific methods. He turned his head several times and noticed a week or two had passed. He wondered if this was true and noticed a few more had slipped by. Miss Marilla Huxley twirled the doctor's unnecessary cosmetic monocle like an aborigine might in a different land. The doctor thought about such people and the way they might obtain petals and maple sugar, or if such things mattered to them at all. Outside, water fell from the sky violently. Electrical shocks hit castle tops, straw huts, and the occasional constable, but the doctor was unaware. He had been sitting in a theatre for several days. The doctor lay in silence for a large amount of time, considering his past. He pictured himself as a child and how nothing had changed but his face. His voice must have been the same, though he could not remember ever using it any more than to read aloud or answer a telegram. He proposed the idea that his box was hardly a box at all. He thought of vast skies, raining various liquids.
Experiences, he felt sure that if those around him, the idiots, the loud, the unimaginative, the vulgar, the obvious, the dull, the amoral, the unsanitary, the slovenly, the vast filler, were not ashamed, how could he, a man of such importance, ever feel an emotion like that?
scrap of wallpaper from the oddly decorated floor and removed a pen from his overcoat. He quickly remembered receiving the pen in question as a gift from Bruno Helden, an old colleague who now dedicated most of his free time to sculpture parks and carnivals. The carriage drawn by large beasts the doctor could only have imagined to be elephants was generous enough. The seats, velvet and clean, were soft. Lumbar support, however, was inadequate for a man of the doctor's age.
My dearest, it seems I am taking a trip. I expected as much, what with the marchings and the cancellation of May Day ceremonies. The girl and eagle are following behind on foot. In all, I fear for the garden which will go unwatered. I mentioned that the help quit, no? On principle, they could no longer work for the generous stipend I gave them. I spit on their early graves, but hope for a reconciliation, as they are genuine people of wishy-washy skill. In one state or another, we'll be in touch.
Saw neatly arranged shrubbery in an otherwise wild stretch of nature. He found the sight to be obscene, and thus himself, when set against the self he dreamt of.
Dearest one, things have taken a turn. Stop. Alert the little one that the alleys have eyes. Stop. She listens to you. Stop. Going to the backyard to pace about. Stop. All my love.
The doctor looked out past the vegetation to his estate and through it at the ghosts and primeval steppes and jungles that once filled his town. He could take no more, so he covered his eyes. Dawn came and he moved his hand.
The two walked in silence past glass domes, a bitter juice tavern, even a rental mammoth. The Griffin demanded a mammoth ride, citing a fatigue syndrome, but the doctor quickly gave him a second opinion and kept walking. dropped this in a nearby mailbox without postage or an envelope. When night fell and he returned home to see that the help had not adhered to the instructions he had written, but not given to them, he fired them on the spot. They were soon in the harpsichord room. She played a number, a favourite. The doctor gazed out an open window at the green hillsides. He needed to wait no longer. The depth of the earth was the breadth of his wonder. It was all for him, and he existed on this knowledge indefinitely. The hill may remain above a curious village upon open skies. The estate may collect its share of dust, with the villagers constantly echoing what he has said, what he has done. None of it can be destroyed.